This is a story of a man who tried to cheat his destiny, and of the animal that said no. It's about a National Geographic photographer, Paul Nicklin, who tried to get a shot of a leopard seal, which I named Beastie. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is an animal with a bad reputation. Leopard seals are huge predators who get to weigh up to 1,300 pounds and who can open their mouth twice as large as a grizzly bear. You don't want to play with anything like that. But Paul, he was so passionate about Arctic life and about bringing new stories and new ideas into the world that he did it anyway. So as he got into the water, Beastie, who was feeding on a penguin, she dropped it. She started swimming towards him, doing all these threat displays. And in a matter of seconds, she took both his camera and his head into her mouth. But I'll get back to this later. What I need you to know for now is that Paul was a TED speaker a while ago, and that his story moved millions. And now I have the honor to stand in front of you and speak about what I think it's really important, and that is how to regain power over who you really are. And it's funny, because it didn't all start this way for me. My childhood was something like a Pinky and the Brain episode. You know, the cartoon with a big-headed mouse thinking of world domination and mind control? Well, that was me. So I actually remember when my parents got me my first doll. I must have been around 3, maybe 4 years old, and I was not girly at all, so I didn't know what to do with it. So the most interesting thing I could come up with was to rip her head off and see what was inside her brain. Now, this scared a few adults, and they never got me another doll, but it made me realize what my true passion was, and I turned that into a career. And I'm not talking about slaying people, if that's what you're thinking, but rather understanding what makes them tick. By this age, I've worked for individuals, corporations, even governments to help them sell their messages to the audience in a way that they will become socially accepted, in the form of pure truth, if you will. And now I get to stand here and do the same to you. I get to put ideas in your brains. Don't you let me. You see, pure truth is an illusion. It does not exist. An honest truth, though, because they do exist, will belong to you and only you for a single moment regarding one specific situation. Change any of the three, the subject, the moment, or the situation, and the truth should change. If not, it was never there to begin with. It was the conditioning, what makes you tick. And we live in a highly conditioned world, and this makes it so easy for the individuals to get lost in the systems. The little gods, as I like to call them, the corporations, the media, the governments, our families, even our own DNA tell us who we are and how we are allowed to manifest. And by the time we ever get to have a say in it, it's so late. We are deeply conditioned. But at least we belong. And for that important sense of belonging, we trade everything that makes us unique, and we give our loyalty to the gods. In trying to explain conditioning, Bert Hellinger, who is my favorite psychotherapist and probably the most brilliant mind of the century, he was telling this story. A circus acquired a polar bear, and because they only needed him for exhibition, they locked him in a cage. The cage was so narrow that the only thing the bear could do to stretch his bones was take 2 paces forward and 2 paces backwards. After years and years, the circus took pity on the bear, so they sold him to a zoo, where he was put in a large field where he could run, play, enjoy life. The only thing the bear would do was take 2 paces forward and 2 paces backwards. Too often, the cages we're put in become the accepted order of things, and they prevent us from seeing what really is. The cage has nothing to do with the world outside, but still we go through life thinking that we own our choices, but how could we? We don't even own our own beliefs. Let's face it, you become Real Madrid fans because your father loved Ronaldo. You vote for or against Scottish independence because someone defined patriotism this way. And it's okay. We are built to be loyal to the systems we belong to, even to the point of madness. Just think of all those dynasties of kings and queens that were rejecting any outsider, no matter how worthy, to ensure a pure bloodline. And now think of the consequences of their actions. The diseases, the malformations, the wars, the madness. Misunderstood loyalty has serious consequences. And what scares me is that most of our loyalties are misunderstood or misguided because we're never aware they exist in the first place. We don't know they are there, but they still change everything about us. Talking about loyalties, let me tell you a true story that is actually true about a situation I had to face when working for the Prime Minister. So I was in the office that day, and the Prime Minister and all my other bosses were in Brussels for an official visit. And it's a government, so pretty much everyone is your boss. So the building was practically deserted. And we had a protest at the gates. I don't know, 200 men. I basically remember the screaming. So a normal day at the office. Now, after a while, the head negotiator demanded to see the Prime Minister. So who do you think they sent? Me. So I put on my government look. I have one. I swear I even scare my mother with this thing sometimes. And I go towards the crowd. Now, this big union guy comes towards me. I swear, the man was huge, a huge man, and so angry. But I was not scared. I mean, everyone who reached our gates was so angry. You know, you get so much practice. And at that point, without blinking, I do exactly what the nation hired me to do. I explain to the concerned citizen at the gates why he will not get what he wants. Don't laugh, that's a job too. But I have to hand it to him. He didn't seem too impressed with me either. He took a step closer, though. He looked straight into my eyes, and without blinking, he got that from me. Without blinking, he told me, "Save it, lady. If that were true, I would have seen it on the morning news. I know they're in the building, so go get them." Well, at that point, there was only one other thing for me to do. I went back up to my office, sat on my chair, went online, and printed a news article that proved my point and showed it to the guy. What do you think happened? He left seconds after reading the headline. The headline. True story. In the end, it's all about understanding to which gods people bow to and to speak using their voices. It's never realistic to fight such loyalties. And by the way, I know that you too still think that those gods in your brains have the real power and that they are the owners of pure truth. But no system on earth has that kind of knowledge or that kind of power. I don't care how you call them, Jesus, Mohammed, Apple, Mummy. They are all limited. And thank you for that outrage on your faces, because you've just proved my point. You see, that burning sensation you have in your stomach when I speak, that's the conditioning screaming at me to stop, because any member of a given system will be able to tell you precisely when and where you crossed the line and stepped outside the given boundaries. And boy, I crossed them big time. But you can relax. You don't need to be here. The only thing that you need to know is that there's a whole world outside those gates. And don't expect the system gods to tell you that. Oh no, they'll have you believe that your happiness, your own survival, depends on you abiding by their rules. It's all conditioning. And they are wrong. Life is really what we make of it. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Don't you make me one of your gods. Go out there and really try, but really, really try. I mean, turn off your TVs. Don't turn them on when you get home. Don't call your mother for a few weeks. I know you love her and I'm sure she's adorable. But still, she's part of your conditioning. Stop eating at the restaurant you love. The food is good, sure. But what? There are no other restaurants in town? And for God's sakes, please, stop taking the same damn road every time when you go back home at night. Allow for change to happen. Allow for your life to become different so you can make what you want with it. At the end of the day, most people believe in fate because they need to believe that nothing can ever be changed. It's easier. And I suppose someone told them that a long time ago. But you know what? They fail to see that fate is just another god, and that they do have the power to bow to it, as they should. It's a god after all. But still say, no thank you. Not this time. And while we are on the subject of fate and cheating it, I never finished my story about Paul and Beastie. When we last left them, Paul had his head in Beastie's mouth. But you know what? Then the most amazing thing happened. Beastie went off and brought him a live penguin. You see, she thought he was a useless predator who was gonna starve in her ocean. So she didn't take advantage of the situation, but she tried to save him. She tried to feed Paul penguins for no less than 4 days. She tried everything, live penguins, dead penguins, pieces, and yes, I know it's disgusting. I wouldn't eat anything that wobbles or bleeds into my plate, but it's the thought that counts. Nature got it all right. It made them enemies, and fate brought them together. But Beastie had other plans. So Beastie decided to go rogue and rise above the system. And sure, she's never gonna be Miss Congeniality at home, but hey, the woman is living her own unique design, and now she's a National Geographic babe, so who cares? As for Paul, he became a TED speaker, and he got to change the world. It's funny when we hear these type of stories. You know, we are taught to believe that animals are the ultimate expressions of conditioning. We use them to prove that we are all slaves of patterns, that we all bow to the gods and nothing can ever change. But don't you believe that. Not for 1 second. If Beastie can do it, then so can we. So when you go back to your homes tonight, make a list of all the systems you've ever been a part of. Nationalities, religions, media channels, consumer groups, political systems, family systems, building associations, neighborhoods, schools, high schools, universities, curling teams, bowling teams, football teams, rugby teams, ethnic groups, folk groups, knitting groups, animal lovers groups, bands, and any other weird communities you've been a part of. And give them the correct place in your life. Watch the media to see what information is socially accepted at the moment. Don't watch it for the truth. Let religions remind you that there is so much more out there than what we can possibly conceive, but don't you let them put you in some cages. This is how you show loyalty, and this is how you tame those gods in your brains and you get your freedom back and use it to get out of those cages. And when it gets hard, because trust me, I know, it will, just remember the words of a great man who was not afraid to be different. His name was Martin Luther King, and he said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving.